the Dimorphodon, a member of the pterosaur family. It is a fairly poor flyer, mainly due to its shorter wingspan. It relies on frantic short flights.
Hello everyone, welcome to a quick analysis of this week's Species Field Guide. We have our first Species Field Guide for the category Air, and we have our 30th known species so far, the Dimorphodon. Dimorphodon felt like a safe bet to go into the game, given that it played a role in the first Jurassic World movie, but as always, it's great to see them confirmed and see them in action, and I gotta say, they look great. In the short clip, we can see 3 of them released from the hatchery at once. This is a special hatchery attached to the aviary itself, similar to the aviary in the first game, and it's likely that the tanks, or lagoons if you prefer to call them that, even though, as far as we know, they are concrete tanks, will also have some sort of custom hatchery attached to it. The flight animation looks really good, in spite of the announcer lady sort of throwing shade at the Dimorphodon, calling them a bad flyer, the poor thing. You're doing great, sweetie, you're doing great. In the final clip, we see a lot of them flying around in the aviary, so the capacity for the aviary looks to be pretty high. It is all Dimorphodon though. In the aviary in the movie, Dimorphodon and Pteranodon were kept within the same aviary, which is how that whole mishap with the helicopter and the escape managed to happen. But that's not what we're seeing here. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible. It could just be that Frontier is keeping that a bit of a secret, keeping it under wraps, but hopefully we can mix and match our species at least to a certain extent. The Dimorphodon in front has landed on the concrete structure, which we've seen multiple times before. This is possibly the viewing gallery, and we see it preening itself. I was initially a little bit concerned that they would only land on the concrete edges, but we do see 2 Dimorphodon also landing on the ground in the background, so that was good for me to see. I don't see any of them landing on the rocks, which I think is a shame. I thought for a second one was going to, but it looks like it's just landing behind the rock. It would be nice if they would land on the rocks or some of the other things that we will be placing within the aviary, because that just makes more sense to me than them landing on only on the concrete edges and on the ground themselves. Although I do recognize that that's probably quite complicated to animate. But we do see them fly very low between the trees, so at the very least the AI is intelligent enough to be aware of the trees and to weave through them as opposed to phase through them, at least hopefully. I didn't see any of the Dimorphodon phasing through the trees in these short clips. So I'm optimistic that that's not going to be something that's going to happen, but you know, in terms of clipping, we always have to be careful. We remember how much clipping there is in the first game. But hopefully the AI is smart enough to recognize, oh hey, that's a tree, let me fly around that. And it would be nice if the AI was also smart enough to be like, hey, that's a rock. That's a decent place to sit in it. It would be nice, but I recognize that that might be too much to ask for, but we'll see, we'll see. So far, though, they're only landing on the concrete edges and the ground itself. Speaking of clipping, I initially thought the Dimorphodon in the foreground was clipping through the concrete, but it looks like there's just a slightly raised edge in front of the claws, which obstructs the view of the claws, because the darker gray stripe in the concrete also doesn't continue there. Other than that, I really have nothing to point out. It was kind of a bare species field guide. I mean, of course it was really cool to finally have the category Air get touched on and have a new species reveal, like 2 in one fell swoop. But at the same time, in terms of additional information, there really wasn't that much to figure out. So we're gonna take this over to the forums and see the information that they posted there about the Dimorphodon. Because it is within this forum article that we actually have the really cool information. The first information is about how you need to keep your Dimorphodon. You need to have several within the enclosure, so they say keep each other in check. It's not really the same as a social need, but I'm guessing it'll function the same. And they need to have plenty of space. In the species field guide, we saw that it was one of those aviaries that consists of 3 connected circles, you know, so I think the triangular aviary is the biggest we've seen so far, so maybe it is the biggest one possible. The forum article specifically mentioned that they need a fair amount of space to spread their wings. What's interesting is that it's also noted that they appreciate some sand in their environment. And this confirms the more in-depth need of dinosaurs. In the first game, it was just the ratio of grassland to forest, and for a minority of dinosaurs, the wetland dinosaurs, it was also a matter of the ratio between grassland and water. This time around is going to be a little bit more complicated. They actually prefer certain ground types. So the Dimorphodon prefers sand, and some of the other dinosaurs may prefer more rock or more dirt, stuff like that. And that's very reminiscent of what it is in Planet Zoo. Now, the really exciting thing is what's going to happen when the Dimorphodon escape. We've been wondering about this, and I think Andrew Reiner in his Game Informer article even posed the question to Frontier, what happens when the flying reptiles escape? And he didn't really get an answer to that, and we've sort of been left to wonder, okay, where do they go? What do they do? Well, they stick around in your park, and the forum article says that they will likely be found perching on things in your park. So the AI is smart enough to recognize perches within the park. I'm guessing structures, maybe even fences that they can land on. And if you don't find them perching on something, you'll find them attacking either your guests or your dinosaurs. So it is confirmed that not only will your Dimorphodon and other flying reptiles go after your paying customers, they will also go after your dinosaurs. So that's interaction between land dinosaurs and flying reptiles confirmed hereby, which also sparks hope for possibly interaction between the marine reptiles and land dinosaurs as well. Obviously, that's going to work differently. It's going to work in a more limited area around wherever the marine reptiles are kept. But, you know, if they went that extra mile with the flying reptiles, I have a smidge of faith. I have a smidge of faith. And a little bit of bonus info as a clarification, thanks to, again, my spy, UT the Huali. By the way, anyone can be my spy, just message me on Discord. But they talked about Dimorphodon eating fish and insects in the Species Field Guide forum article, and that got people confused. Frontier does want to acknowledge that Dimorphodon likely ate insects, you know, when it was alive on our beautiful Earth a very, very, very long time ago. But that's not how it's going to work in the game. In the game, they're going to eat from fish feeders, which have, in this comment, been confirmed to return. So they're not going to be eating insects, they're just going to be eating fish. And that is really all there is to it. If I missed something, let me know in the comments. And if you like staying up to date on all of the Jurassic World Evolution 2 news, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the anticipation.